Why did some of the most iconic cars from the 90s end up being some of the most disliked today? The 1990s were a golden era for car lovers. Cars had bold designs, experimental ideas, and a rebellious edge. It was an era when cars seemed to be built to last, or at least that's what we believed. Models like the Mercedes-Benz C36 AMG, Toyota Supra, and Acura NSX were more than just machines. They were symbols of power and prestige. They were statements. Driving one said you were stylish, bold, and all about performance. So what happened? In this video, we're taking a look at 25 popular cars from the 90s that people used to love, and why today many drivers avoid them. From mechanical issues to aging technology, each car has its own story. By the end, you might feel differently about your favorite car from the past, or you might be ready to defend it in the comments. Let's jump into the decade that gave us legends and also some lemons. This was the first car AMG officially built with Mercedes. It emerged in the mid-90s, introducing the concept of a fast, luxury sedan. It had a 3.6-liter inline-six engine with 276 horsepower. It could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 5.8 seconds. That was fast for a four-door sedan back then. The C36 AMG looked clean and classy. The AMG badge on the back gave it a cool factor, and with a price of about $52,000, it was clearly a premium car. It looked like a business suit that had a fighter inside. If you saw one in a school parking lot or at a shopping mall, you would stop and stare. Today, most people have forgotten it. The interior features no touchscreen, no Bluetooth, and only traditional buttons. Repairs are expensive. Parts are hard to find. New AMG models are quicker, smarter, and easier to live with. As a result, the C36 is rarely collected. Only true Mercedes fans or car history nerds still care about it. It was the start of something big, but couldn't remain in the spotlight. The Subaru SVX was one of the weirdest cars of the 90s. It looked like something from a science fiction movie. The design was created by Giorgetto Giugiaro, the same person who worked on the DeLorean. Its most famous feature was the window-within-a-window design, which looked like an aircraft canopy. Under the hood, it featured a 3.3-liter flat-six engine producing 230 horsepower and was equipped with all-wheel drive. That was rare for coupes back then. Price was approximately $23,500, which was high for a Subaru. At first, people were impressed. It looked cool and had decent performance. But then came the problems. There was no manual transmission, which disappointed enthusiasts. The car drank gas, had reliability issues, and was expensive to maintain. The design aged badly. People weren't ready to pay luxury prices for a Subaru. Sales dropped. Subaru pulled the plug after just 5 years. They lost a lot of money on it. Today, the SVX is mostly forgotten. You don't see it at car shows. Most people only remember it when they suddenly spot one and say, "Oh yeah, that thing." This was the smooth, quiet gentleman's coupe that time forgot. In the early 90s, Lexus was new and trying to compete with German luxury brands. The SC400 was their way of showing that they could make a fast and comfortable coupe. It came with a 4.0-liter V8 engine that made 250 horsepower. It drove like silk, had a clean design, and was renowned for its reliability. The price was around $40,000. It wasn't cheap, but it looked and felt expensive. It was never a street racer. It was built for cruising on the highway. Over time, the design started to feel old. The fuel economy was poor. The tech inside didn't age well. Lexus shifted its focus to SUVs, and the SC was quietly dropped. There was no sporty version to keep people interested. Today, it's mainly remembered by fans of old Japanese luxury cars. It's not hated, but it is often ignored. In 1998, Jeep released the 5.9 Limited. It was the most powerful SUV available at that time. It had a 5.9-liter V8 engine with 245 horsepower and 345 pound-feet of torque. It could go from 0 to 60 in about 7 seconds. That was very quick for an SUV in the late 90s. It came fully loaded with leather seats, wood trim, a premium sound system, and a price tag of around $35,000. It was fast, loud, and looked tough. The Dodge Stealth was meant to be America's answer to Japanese performance cars, but under the surface, it was actually a Mitsubishi 3000 GT. It came packed with wild tech for its time. It had a twin-turbo V6 engine with 300 horsepower, all-wheel drive, four-wheel steering, and even active aerodynamics. All that for around $25,000. It was a dream car, often seen on posters. But the technology didn't hold up. The active aero systems failed, the four-wheel steering became a maintenance nightmare. And today, finding replacement parts is almost impossible. Also, Mitsubishi's image in the US faded. Buyers didn't want a Dodge that was really a Mitsubishi. Now, the Stealth is almost forgotten. Few survive, fewer are loved. It was a car that aimed high but fell hard. The Elan M100 had everything going for it. Sharp handling, a fresh design, and the Lotus name. But then Lotus did something that shocked fans. They made it front-wheel drive. For Lotus lovers, that was a betrayal. The car was equipped with a 1.6-liter turbocharged engine, producing approximately 120 horsepower. It was light and handled well thanks to Lotus engineering, but it lacked the fun and feel of rear-wheel drive. It cost around $30,000. That was a lot, especially when cars like the Mazda Miata and BMW Z3 were cheaper and more exciting. It wasn't fast enough, it was not traditional, and it was not affordable. Add in British reliability problems and expensive upkeep, and the M100 quickly faded from memory. Even serious Lotus fans usually skip over it. You rarely see one on the road or at car meets. The E34 M5 was one of the top sports sedans in the early 90s. It featured a 315 horsepower inline-six engine, a manual transmission, and the sharp BMW handling that everyone loved. Every single car was hand-built in Germany, which made it feel special the moment you started it up. It looked clean, sounded great, and drove like a precision tool. The price was around $60,000. This was the car your cool uncle used to drive. But now it feels outdated. The boxy shape no longer turns heads. Its old-school tech can't compete with even basic new sedans. Worst of all, it is too expensive to maintain. Parts are rare, electronics fail. Maintaining it requires time and money. Newer M5s are faster, smoother, and compact with features. Unless you're a hardcore BMW fan, owning an E34 M5 today feels more like a full-time job than a fun drive. This was Porsche at its purest. The 911 Carrera RS was a lightweight, no-frills version of the 911, made for the racetrack. It had a naturally aspirated flat-six engine, stiff suspension, and laser-sharp handling. It ditched comfort for performance. Back in the early 90s, it cost over $100,000, and every dollar went toward making it fast. If you spotted one on the road, it was a big deal. But today, it's more of a museum piece. Most of these cars sit in climate-controlled garages with million-dollar price tags. They're too valuable to drive, and the truth is, newer 911s are faster, safer, and more comfortable. What was once a track weapon has become a collector's treasure. People don't hate the car itself, they just hate that it became something most will never get to experience. The Bugatti EB10 appeared to have come from another world. It had a 3.5-liter V12 engine with 4 turbochargers, making 553 horsepower. That was supercar speed before the term even existed. With a price tag of approximately $400,000, this car was designed for the ultra-rich. It had scissor doors, all-wheel drive, and a carbon fiber chassis, which was incredibly rare at the time. On paper, it was terrific. In reality, it launched at the worst possible time. A global recession hit. Bugatti's parent company ran out of money. By 1995, they were bankrupt. Only 139 EB10s were ever made. Even wealthy buyers avoided it. The parts were fragile, the service was difficult, and there was no dealer support. Today, the EB10 is seen as a misunderstood masterpiece. It was too advanced for its time, and that made it nearly impossible to keep alive. The BMW Z1 looked like a car from the future. Its doors didn't swing open. Instead, they slid down into the body. That one feature made it one of the most unusual cars BMW has ever built. It also had plastic body panels, 170 horsepower engine, and the signature BMW driving feel. It cost about $50,000. That was a lot for a car that felt more like a design experiment. Only 8,000 were produced, and it was never officially sold in the United States. At first, people were curious. The idea felt fresh. But reality hit fast. It was underpowered, sliding doors broke, and fixing anything on it was a hassle. The novelty wore off. Today, the Z1 is a car that collectors talk about, but few actually drive. It's fun to look at, but not practical to own. BMW tried something wild and never repeated it. The M3 Lightweight, also known as the E36 LTW, was designed for racing enthusiasts. BMW stripped it down to the basics. They removed sound insulation, used thinner glass, and skipped air conditioning. This saved about 200 pounds. It had a 240 horsepower inline-six engine and a manual transmission. It handled like a dream and cost about $40,000 when new. Only 125 were ever sold in the United States. On the track, it was a star. On regular roads, not so much. It was noisy, rough, and not built for comfort. In the past, many buyers considered it too extreme to drive daily. It's too expensive to buy just for fun. Now it's incredibly rare and valuable, but you'll mostly see it in private collections or at auctions. For most people, it's a car to admire, not to drive. Named after a rally legend, the Tommy Machinan Edition Evo 6 was built for serious performance. It had 276 horsepower, all-wheel drive, and a turbocharged engine that thrived on being pushed. Inside, it had red Recaro seats and a Momo steering wheel. The whole car felt like a rally stage on wheels. The price was around $35,000, which was a great deal for what it could do. But there were issues. It was never sold in the US, so most cars here are imported. That makes parts hard to find. Getting it registered can be a headache, and maintenance is not cheap. It also had a rough ride, basic interior, and bad fuel economy. For rally fans, it's a dream come true, but for everyday drivers, it's a bit too much to handle. The Ferrari F50 was designed to commemorate the brand's Formula One heritage. It had a 4.7-liter V12 engine taken directly from an F1 car. It produced 512 horsepower and could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3.8 seconds. It had a removable roof, so you could hear the engine scream even louder. Only 349 were made, and it cost approximately $450,000. This car was pure performance. No radio, no ABS, and no traction control. That sounds amazing, but it also scares most drivers. It was raw, loud, and hard to control. Many collectors preferred Ferraris that were faster and more refined, like the 458 Italia or the SF90. The F50 is still worth a lot of money, but most people just look at it. Very few actually drive it. The same things that made it legendary also made it too wild for the average driver. The Mercedes CLK GTR was built for racing, not for the road. Mercedes had to make a few road-legal versions to qualify for the FIA GT Championship, so they made just 25 units. It came with a massive 6.9-liter V12 engine that produced 622 horsepower. It could reach 60 miles per hour in just 3.8 seconds, and the top speed was 214 miles per hour. The price was a shocking $1.5 million. It looked like a dream car, but in reality, it was too extreme. Driving it in the city was almost impossible. The ride was rough, the cabin was tiny, and even speed bumps felt dangerous. Repairs were so expensive that even wealthy owners avoided driving it. Today, the CLK GTR is mostly seen in museums or private collections. It's a car to admire, not to use. The Ford Escort RS Cosworth was a rally icon. It had 224 horsepower, all-wheel drive, and a huge rear spoiler called the whale tail. It could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.7 seconds. At around $30,000, it was a solid deal for fans of racing. It looked aggressive and had real motorsport roots. But it didn't age well. The engine required constant maintenance, and the build quality was subpar. The interior rattled even when new. Today, finding parts is a significant challenge. Hardcore fans still love it. However, for most people, it's too unreliable and too expensive to maintain. The Mazda RX7 FD was one of the most visually appealing sports cars of the 1990s. It had a smooth design, pop-up headlights, and a twin-turbo rotary engine. That engine made 255 horsepower and pushed the car from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.3 seconds. It cost about $30,000 when new and was a favorite for tuners. But the rotary engine had problems. It used too much oil, wore out quickly, and needed regular rebuilds. Fuel economy was poor and many owners had engine trouble. Today, the RX-7 remains a beloved car for its distinctive looks and charm, but it's not easy to live with. Unless you're ready to learn everything about rotary engines, it can be a tough car to own. In the late 90s, the Acura Integra Type R was a dream for drivers who love corners. It had a 1.8-liter VTEC engine with 195 horsepower and could rev to 8,400 RPM. It came with a 5-speed manual and a limited slip differential. It was light, sharp, and cost about $25,000. Many said it handled better than some Ferraris. But today, things have changed. Modern cars are faster, smoother, and more comfortable. The Type R feels loud, rough, and very basic. There's no insulation, and luxury features are missing. Still, it's become a collector's item. Clean models now sell for over $80,000. It's special, but not something most people would want to drive every day. The Ferrari 550 Maranello brought back Ferrari's front-engine Grand Tourer style. It featured a 5.5-liter V12 engine that produced 485 horsepower, and it was paired with a 6-speed gated manual transmission. It was designed for fast and comfortable cruising. The price when new was around $200,000. But newer Ferraris like the 575M, the 612, and even the 812 Superfast made it feel outdated. It didn't have screens or modern features. Maintenance was expensive and gas mileage was poor. Some Ferrari fans love its old-school charm, but younger buyers often skip it, thinking it's too slow and too costly for what it offers. The BMW 850 CSI was the top-of-the-line model in the 90s 8 Series. It featured pop-up headlights, a wedge-like design, and a powerful 5.6-liter V12 engine producing 327 horsepower. It also featured high-tech components, including 4-wheel steering and a drive-by-wire throttle. The price, over $100,000 back in the early 90s. But all that technology came with problems. The car was heavy, complex, and very expensive to maintain. Today's M8 or even an M5 can easily outperform it. Finding parts and mechanics who understand it is tough. It's not old enough to feel vintage and not new enough to feel modern. It sits in an awkward place, admired by collectors but forgotten by most. The Jaguar XJ220 was once the world's fastest production car. It could hit 217 miles per hour. It had a 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 engine that made 542 horsepower. It went from 0 to 60 in just 3.6 seconds. Initially, Jaguar promised a V12 engine and all-wheel drive, but when production started, it only had rear-wheel drive and a smaller V6. That upset a lot of early buyers. The price was nearly $600,000. The problems didn't stop there. It was hard to maintain, had poor visibility, and wasn't very reliable. Only 281 were made, and many didn't sell for years. Today, it's rare and highly valued at auctions, but people admire it more as a collector's item than a car to drive. The hype was big, but the reality didn't match it. The second-generation Toyota MR2 resembled a mini Ferrari. It featured sharp styling, a mid-engine setup, and a turbocharged 2.0-liter engine capable of producing up to 200 horsepower. When it came out in the early 90s, it cost around $15,000. That was a great deal for something that looked exotic. But it was tricky to drive. Because the engine was behind the driver, it could spin out quickly during sharp turns. Many new drivers crashed into them. Even insurance companies raised rates because of their high crash rate. Toyota later fixed the suspension, but the bad reputation stayed. Over time, most people went for cars that were safer and easier to drive. Today, JDM fans still adore it, but most drivers recall it as a risky and unpredictable experience. The Subaru Empreza 22B is a rally legend. It was built to celebrate Subaru's big wins in the World Rally Championship. It featured a 2.2-liter turbocharged engine producing 280 horsepower and was equipped with all-wheel drive. Only 400 were made, and they all stayed in Japan. The launch price was about $40,000. But hardly anyone got to drive one. It wasn't sold in the US, and it wasn't until many years later that it became legal to import. Even if you found one, it was loud, stiff, and had no luxuries. Today, it can sell for over $200,000. Most people admire it from a distance, but few will ever get to own or drive one. The Porsche 911 GT2 from the 993 generation was a wild beast. It started as a 911 turbo but lost the front drivetrain to save weight. The engine made 430 horsepower. It had no traction control, no stability tech, and rear-wheel drive. It cost around $200,000 and was built for expert drivers. But it was scary fast. If you didn't know what you were doing, it could be dangerous. Many owners were too afraid to drive them. They kept them in garages to protect their value. Today, it's a dream car for collectors, but most people don't drive it. They just look at it, respect it, and fear it. In the 1990s, the Lamborghini Diablo was every kid's dream car. It had a huge 6.0-liter V12 with 492 horsepower. It could go over 200 miles per hour. The wedge shape and scissor doors made it a poster car. It cost $250,000, but celebrities and rich buyers lined up for it. The truth, it was hard to live with. The clutch was heavy, the gearbox was tough, and seeing out of it was almost impossible. Driving it in traffic felt like a challenge. When newer Lambos came out, the Diablo started to feel old. Today, it's still iconic. However, most people view it as a collector's item rather than something to drive every day. The Acura NSX changed the supercar game in 1991. It had a 270 horsepower V6, a mid-engine layout, and a lightweight aluminum body. Even F1 legend Ayrton Senna helped with the handling. It costs around $60,000, way cheaper than a Ferrari, and much easier to own. People loved it because it was fast and reliable, but over time that reliability made it feel too normal. It didn't sound wild or feel as dramatic as its rivals. As new sports cars got faster and more powerful, the NSX started to seem underpowered. Today, clean models can sell for over $150,000. People love what it stood for, but many feel it's more about history than excitement. It's respected, but not everyone is blown away by how it drives now. So what really happened? How did these, once the dream of every teenager, poster child of every garage wall, lose their shine? The answer ultimately comes down to time, technology, and shifting consumer tastes. In the 1990s, these cars were exciting, bold, and ahead of their time. However, as the years passed, drivers began to expect more. More comfort, more safety, more tech, and better efficiency. And while some of these cars still hold legendary status, others just couldn't keep up. Some became too expensive to maintain, others were too raw, too risky, or just too outdated to enjoy today. And a few, they were simply left behind as newer models took the spotlight. But one thing's for sure, they made an impact. Whether they're now tucked away in collections or just live on in our memories, these 90s icons helped shape car culture forever. Which of these cars do you still admire? Which one do you think is totally overrated? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this blast from the past, give the video a like and hit subscribe for more car deep dives, nostalgia trips, and the stories behind the machines we grew up loving.